Hey guys, Blue Manchu here, and welcome back to another episode of the Half Mile Challenge, where in our last episode, we took a completely stock 16-inch Palmetto State Armor AR-15 and we reached out to 920 yards. The goal for this series is to take that one-time shot and turn it into first round impacts at a half mile. On today's episode, if you look before me, we have a completely unrecognizable gun, and that's because we've taken our stock rifle and given it a complete front-end makeover. So here's the outline for today. Before we upgraded the rifle, we took it out and we tested its performance in its stock configuration. We had a target out at 100 yards and we shot groups of both 55 grain and 77 grain ammunition. Then we'll take the rifle back to the bench, show you what we upgraded, and then we're going to finish out the video by showing you guys how the rifle performs after all the upgrades, shooting once again the 55 grain and 77 grain groups at 100 yards. Before we upgraded the rifle, you're going to see a couple of obvious things. First thing you're going to notice is that the dust kick-up per shot is pretty bad compared to if you were to be shooting with a suppressor. Another thing is this rifle has a non-adjustable gas block in this configuration, which led to quite a harsh recoil impulse, which also affected the ability to see bullet traces and impacts downrange. The overall shooting experience also fatigues you faster when you're shooting unsuppressed, and an added bonus is nobody wants to shoot next to you when you're shooting up a A2 bird cage.
That is so unpleasant.
Despite its shortcomings, the stock configuration does actually group fairly well, both with the 55 grain and 77 grain at 100 yards. A lot of the spread here is due to me being a new shooter, and we're still on a Milspec trigger. Now that we've gone over what was noticeably wrong with the rifle, let's look at what we're going to fix with this video. What we ideally want to do here is kick up less dust with each shot. We also wanted to be able to swap easily between shooting suppressed and unsuppressed. We also wanted to reduce and tame the recoil impulse to allow for better tracking of the bullet trajectories and to be able to see impacts downrange better. And we also wanted to be able to enjoy longer durations of being behind the rifle. So with those changes in mind, let's take it back to the workbench and show you guys what we upgraded on this rifle.
Yeah, it should be towards you.
Oh,
That is okay. Right. We do not need to clearly walk on you. That is like, come on.
just keep doing it.
I'm just trying to Oh, jeez. It's a weird trick. You can see that's the untouched part. That's the touch part. Touch. I like that. Because we live in the desert, and oil evaporates too quickly.
Now that we've quickly seen what we changed back at the workbench, I'm going to go ahead and go from top to bottom on what we changed here as we get set up to take the next shots at the 100-yard line. Up front, we have a Polonium K556 suppressor by Otter Creek Labs. This is the shorter version of their suppressor. They do have a longer version, but the Polo K is supposed to be less gassy, and that's what we're kind of going for here. Behind that, we have a Rearden Atlas Plan B mount, and on the barrel is the Revival Defense and Forward Concepts Plan B muzzle brake. Behind that, we have the Superlative Arms 750 adjustable gas block, which allowed us to tune the rifle and actually give us an enjoyable experience that lets us spend a lot more time behind the rifle. On top of all that, we actually upgraded the handguard to an old Anderson quad rail, RIP, and below that we have a Harris bipod adapter with the Harris SBR-M. I went with the quad rail plus the Harris bipod as it's a little bit more rigid and sturdy than the old plastic Magpul one that I was using, and I threw on some of my old spare Knights Armament rail covers just to add to the old GWAT vibe. The last change we have is that Geissele airborne charging handle that I just racked right there. This charging handle does a really good job of plugging up the back of the upper receiver so none of the gas really escapes into your face. I was able to shoot this thing all day long, and I honestly wanted to shoot it some more. I did not really suffer much from the recoil anymore, and I wasn't suffering any stinging eyes or burning throat. The changes we made don't necessarily promote accuracy increases, but they do improve the user experience. And the main thing we're looking forward to here is the recoil impulse control that we have. We are having a difficult time somewhat when it comes to tracking our impacts at range now that we're shooting out to 920 yards and maybe even further. And adding the suppressor plus the adjustable gas block has made for putting not only impacts onto targets but follow-up impacts as well much easier. A quick note, we aren't actually done upgrading this rifle. As you can tell, we still have a 1:6 LPVO, and as I mentioned before, we are still rocking a Milspec trigger. In the near future, I will be taking this gun to my first precision gas gun match, and we will be encountering targets out to 700 yards. So I'm thinking that the 1:6 is fine, but for the division I want to enter, 10x magnification is the max that I can push. So I'm going to be looking for some new glass still for a while because I was set on a 3x18 to begin with, but with these new constraints, I'll have to start over again. So if you guys have any recommendations for glass around $500, please let me know. At the moment, I am looking at Swamp Fox, and I'm interested to give them a try. I have some before and after groups for you guys here. These changes weren't really meant to increase accuracy, but I still wanted to see what kind of difference we would get. So we shot two 10-round groups of 55 grain, and we shot two 10-round groups of 77 grain at 100 yards. Let me go ahead and throw up the before groups. And here is the after groups. For the most part, you might even say we lost some accuracy, but I think a lot of that comes down to we didn't clean out the barrel after we did all the changes we made, and that might account for some of the flyers that we had in these groups. In the next video, we're going to be changing the trigger, and that's where we're going to actually be looking at how tight of a group we can get with this budget SPR we've put together. So please stick around. We're going to have a lot more shooting and better camera angles for you guys as we continue to push on for the half-mile challenge.